we've talked with policy people, we've talked with elected officials that were mayors and are now doing work at the state level, data, and then pilots. We absolutely must talk to community organizers. This is the work that we do together. This is the work that is making the basic income march possible. And so I am very excited to be able to bring Carrie Anne, introduce Carrie Anne and bring her up so that we can have a conversation together about the work that she's doing. Hi, Carrie Anne.
Hey, Stacey, how are you?
Good, it's lovely to see you.
You too. And wow, how inspiring and what amazing work. And I'm just so honored to be in the same room as those people, and everything they're doing is just really, it's motivational for sure.
Awesome. I know it is. Getting to work with all these amazing people is in and of itself inspiring. And I count you as one of those people. We've had a chance to meet with you and other city organizers, community organizers, almost weekly for several months as we've been doing the work in prepping for the Basic Income March. But I wanted to, well, first let me introduce you a little bit so that people know who you are, and then we're gonna dig into some things. So Carrie Anne is a single mom born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. She grew up inspired by the nonviolent work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and strives to find every opportunity to continue his advocacy, both for eradicating poverty and for pushing for racial equality, which is in Atlanta, noble and important work. We'll talk about, we're gonna talk a little bit about your experience as a grassroots organizer in Georgia, and we're going to talk about guaranteed income and your work in the UBI and basic income space, but we're going to talk about kind of a wider and broader work that you've been doing in Atlanta for the last year also, because this is what's going to be inspiring for me. I'm excited to dig into this because as when we were prepping for this, you mentioned a few things. I was like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Okay, I want to hear. So welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Okay, so first, let's just understand your journey towards basic income. So what brought you to the idea of basic income? And you devote a pretty significant amount of your free time, which probably as a single mom, you don't have very much of, for the work to advocate for this. Tell me about what fuels you.
So my daughter Evelyn is 5, and anybody who knows me knows she goes to all my events. If I'm somewhere, she's right next to me holding a sign. So I love that I have a little partner in crime.
Nice.
But her father was physically abusive to both of us, and so we left him when she was an infant. So no child support, no contact, no help or anything besides family. But so I worked a retail job, $10 an hour at night, and my mom would watch her at night, so I didn't have a daycare cost and all that. And I got food stamps and I had Medicaid, and we were getting by. We were okay. Needs were met, but every single purchase had to be budgeted, and there was no extracurricular activities. We had to turn down play dates that weren't just at the park. Like, it wasn't living. And I remember like being at work at night, just being like, God, if only I could make $15 an hour. If I could make $15 an hour, everything would be fine. And this was back when the fight for 15 was gaining recognition. And I was like, yes, we need $15 an hour. So circumstances change. I got an office job a couple of years later, $15 an hour. But now I'm working 9 to 5. So my mom can't watch Evelyn anymore. So now I have daycare. And I did apply for daycare assistance, and they paid half of it, but I still had to pay $400 a month, and then I have the transportation costs and the new clothes for the office, and don't qualify for food stamps anymore, making $15 an hour. And you're also in a new tax bracket. Thanks to Trump's tax law, I had $1,000 taken out of my return that I was used to getting. So I just felt really despondent. I was like, well, where do we go from here? This was my whole thing, was like, if we make $15 an hour, that's a living wage. We'll be able to live. And here I am sharing a 1-bedroom apartment with my daughter. We don't have cable. We don't have internet. I'm not in credit card debt. My car's paid for, and I still can't afford to really live and enjoy my life. And so I didn't want to be here anymore. I was like, I don't see a way out of this. And then I heard Andrew Yang speak at the Democratic debate, and I was like, what a freedom dividend, $1,000 a month. Well, that's perfect. That's exactly what everyone needs. Not just me, but everyone deserves that. And so my first in real life Yang Gang event was the first Basic Income March in 2019. And it was amazing. And it really inspired me to become more active in all politics because I had such a great time. And it inspired me to start hosting the march because I had such a good time and met friends and volunteers who I still work with today and love. And so that was a great experience. But it's just, that's the only way. It doesn't matter how many jobs you work. I've sold essential oils on the side. I've taught mommy and me classes. If you just we have to be able to meet our basic needs, and especially for women who can find themselves in abusive situations either at work or at home, we need to be able to leave when it is time to go without worrying, how am I going to pay the bills? And so I devote all my time to that because I don't see another option. That's just what we have to do. So I just get Evelyn and we go.
Awesome. Well, just after just listening to Adam, I mean, first, thank you for sharing your story and really appreciate it. And it's such an important side, you know, a part of the picture. You know, Adam was just talking about when he looks at data, when he you know, he knows that the data is individuals, but when he just looks at the big picture data, he's like, we have to like, we're at a moment where this has to happen. Like it's going to get very, you know, we're going to go down a bad path pretty quickly if we don't really put our energy behind this. And I think that having organizers and advocates like you who get it and are like, it's this or what, you know, I think it's a lot of what brought me to basic income also. You know, I have a 14-year-old son, and there was a certain point where I was like, oh, what the hell am I doing? I was like designing, you know, digital products for like cars and stuff. I'm like, this does not matter. And I cannot, I mean, I'm now 47, so I'm getting to the age where it's like, I'm thinking about like, okay, if I get sick and my son is like, what did you do with your life? I'm like, not going to say I made another cool gaming app. I want to say like, I fought for you to be better, to be in a better place than when you were born, you know, like that is what I owe you. And so I think that fuel that our children give us can be a really important way, a wake-up call really, and also the inspiration we need to just get up each day and do it, because, you know, if not for them, who?
Absolutely. And I also have to say, you know, I always hear Martin Luther King Jr. in my ear, and he said that our lives begin to end the day that we stop. Our lives begin to end the day that we, what was the quote? When it stops mattering, right? Our lives begin to end the day that we stop. And we have to, this matters. All of these things matter. Basic income matters, racial equality matters. And so I have to get up every morning and do it because we just have to.
That's right. That's right.
The day that we become silent about the things that matter, that's it. Our lives begin to end the day.
I knew it was going to come. I knew it was going to come.
I rehearsed that so much, and then I'm on here and I'm fumbling it. But yes, that is a quote I live by.
That's a good, yeah, that is an important one. And so you can be living by it without even ever having heard it, but like when you hear it, it rings so true. It's yeah. Great. So you're in Atlanta, and so obviously 2021 has been a pretty serious year for what's been happening in Georgia. And so I want to kind of take us back. We started the conversation with Anna Aurelio when I said, like, what are some of the highlights? And she talked about the runoff as this really important marker moment. And I don't think she said this specifically, but I remember when we were heading into the holidays in 2020, and you know, everyone was like, one check is not enough, there needs to be another stimulus check. The importance of that specific, just one idea of like, we need to have another check, and that that the Democrats said, we're going to give you another $2,000 and the Republicans said we're not, was just like a really clear, you know, line in the sand. When Mitch McConnell was like, I mean, I think we all were just like, oh my gosh, this is becoming a really big, important issue. So I know that you were heavily involved in the runoff. You organized over a dozen events during the runoffs. Tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
almost
about
20, I think. Yeah. Well, I had co-founded the Humanity Forward Georgia the year before, or that year. And so I had amazing colleagues and volunteers. You know, when Yang announced he was coming to Georgia, the whole Yang gang nationally just came together. Lots of people came in. So I had tons of support, but I just knew, like you said, they drew that line in the sand. And I don't necessarily identify as a Democrat, but I put all in for those two guys because I was like, if we don't stop Mitch McConnell now, there will be no more money.
that's right.
And so we did the basics. We did, weekly letter writing parties on Zoom. We did weekly sign holding events. But a couple of the things that we did that I'm really proud of were inspired by Income Movement, because for the March in 2020, we had to get creative. And so you guys had offered cities like a variety of events, things like bike parades, car parades, art installations. And so I really took that cue from you. And we made a really fun art installation. We had a 6-foot tall cutout of, it was a cardboard cutout of Mitch McConnell. And then we took old campaign signs from around town and we had put like 2 gravestones per sign. And we put like bipartisan bills that he had killed in the Senate for no reason. And we put them up. We had about 25 of those. And so we would go to parks like Piedmont Park. We went down to Savannah, to Forsyth Park, the west end of Atlanta, and we would just put it up. And of course, people are going to come over like, what the heck is this? And we're like, this is our future if you don't vote for these 2 guys,
That's so awesome. That's great. There is something really powerful and impactful to like the imagery of something, that takes up space and it just attracts attention. When we did the eviction notice installation, which the LA crew is doing again this year for their rally, there's something really kind of crazy when you can see it all. We think of like data visualizations and like cool things, but like when you actually create a visualization, a physical installation that is a visualization of like, look at all these things, it's really pretty cool. And it's also just great photo opportunities and like those are a lot.
Yes, and we did do a car parade also. I unfortunately caught COVID right before the car parade, and so I wasn't at my own event. I hated that, but we had about 10 cars, and we rode around downtown. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun organizing during the runoffs.
So you are in Atlanta, and so we moved very, the runoffs happened and actually like happened pretty quickly. It felt like that momentum of building, and then just a couple months later, the spa shootings happened in Atlanta. And I wanted to just talk a little bit with you. So much of the work that we do as advocates is because we know the intersectionality of race and economic injustice and gender, like all these things are just so intertwined. So many of us are working across a wide variety of different issues. And I know that you very much so took to heart what was happening in your community around Asian hate. And I'd love to know how you responded to that as an organizer, as a community member.
So that's an interesting, because about a week before the shootings happened, there was an Emory grad student, her name's Allison Wang, and she hit up the Humanity Forward Georgia website, which I get the emails from that. And she was like, I would like to organize a rally for my community. Like, I've seen all the violence against Asians and it really upsets me, but I have no organizing experience. Could someone help me? And I was like, oh, you got the right girl. I will help you. And so we were actually planning more of like a community celebratory event. And then we had actually had 3 meetings, and then the shootings happened. And so I called a fellow activist, Will Lexham. I had met him. He came to Atlanta during the runoffs to help, and I had met him at some of our events there. And he does a lot of work in New York and LA with big rallies of Stop Asian Hate and unity movement and things like that. So I was like, we need to get this guy down here with us. So me and Allison and Will and another girl, Claire, we spent the next 72 hours on Zooms. We were on Zooms with all of the AAPI leaders in Atlanta. I mean, it was just Allison as a grad student, her friend Claire, and then me and Will. But we ended up with the senators speaking at the rally, and Reverend Barber came, and there was over 1,000 people that showed up. We really didn't want it to be political. We didn't invite the senators because we wanted everyone to feel included, and we were just trying to create a space for the community to grieve what had happened. But I guess it just got so big that the senators wanted to come and speak, and you don't say no. So it's like I probably got to meet them after all the events I had organized for them. But it was really amazing to work in the Asian American community. Evelyn wants to say hi. Yes, thank you, baby. And I made a lot of new friends, and I really saw how that community was hurting. And so I got involved in their things. I spoke at a few things about including Asian American studies in the K through 12 curriculum, like making that mandatory. And also,
Kitty,
okay, honey. And then I also helped. We did do that community day that we were planning, the big celebration. We also did that as well. And so I made a lot of connections, and now these people are helping me with the Basic Income March this year. They're some of my fellow organizers. And so I really got, that community to mix with the basic income community. And we just see how it all, we all work together. It's great to build coalitions like that.
That's right. That's fantastic. I know it feels like there's so much work on the coalition side happening in different cities, that the Basic Income March is this opportunity either to start forging those or to further solidify those. It's been really cool to hear what different organizers, kind of how inspired and excited they're getting about those relationships that they're building in organizations that are doing really cool and important work in their neighborhoods. You just started to talk a little bit about this year's Basic Income March. Tell us about what you have planned in Atlanta.
So the last couple years, we marched and we held signs at the Capitol, but the problem with the Capitol in Atlanta is nobody works there on Saturday, and it's not in like a walkable part of the city. So there wasn't really a lot of foot traffic or bystanders. And I love marching, but with the last year marching with the tragic loss of life from APD, the Atlanta Police Department brutality and the spa shootings, I was just like, I don't know if we're going to march in Atlanta this year. So I decided we're going to celebrate. And like you said, we have made strides. I mean, like some of the other speakers have said, in 2019, people are like $1,000 a month. You're crazy. But now it's like, okay, we have the child tax credit. So we have definitely made big strides in the past 2 years. And so I wanted it to be a little bit of a celebratory thing as well. So we are going to go to the Georgia Beer Garden, which is a place that does a lot of political rallies. Yang had a rally there. And we're going to hear from some people in the community. I've got a local artist who created some work to display. And I've got some just regular, some of my Asian friends and stuff that are just going to talk about what basic income would mean in their life. And I have some child tax credit recipients who are going to talk about what that's meant to them. And then I've got a couple of mayoral candidates and city council candidates, and they're going to listen to what they hear, and then they're going to respond and show their support. So I'm looking forward to hearing from our community members. And I like putting, regular people on stage, because so many times we'll come out and we'll listen to all these thought leaders and these really smart, intelligent people and just come away feeling like really humbled. And I'm like, well, let's hear from people like you and me, like what would basic income mean to you? And let's make these elected officials listen to this before they get to talk.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. I know. And it is, I feel like a gift that the child tax credit has given us, in that there are millions of people in all of our cities, who are receiving monthly checks. And so we have the ability to bring together people and give them a platform to tell their stories. It's really kind of an amazing gift for us to be able to have an opportunity to it's like having one massive pilot happening all across the country, where you're just gonna be like, okay, how do I, and I love that you're spending, so much of this year is really focused on your community members and elevating those voices. And I think it's a theme throughout a lot of the marches and rallies and concerts. A lot of the people who are speaking are other organizers, people in the community, and then just people who have received, been part of the child tax credit or a pilot, to be able to talk about like what it's meant to them. And I think that's such an important part of what we can do as we do our work. So I'm really looking forward to seeing video and photos of your event. And I love that it's happening at the beer garden. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to see the transition from like one beer to two beers in the photos. Just like things are going to become much more like kind of genial and joyful and, you know, celebratory as you continue through the
Right.
That's awesome. So we're kind of coming up towards the top of our time together, but I would love to know, are you keeping your eye on anything or thinking about 2022? And you've been involved in so many things. Are you excited about something, or there's something you want to put time and energy into as we head into the new year?
There is, but you guys are going to have to read Andrew Yang's new book Forward to find out what I'll be doing next year.
Nice. That's
He's going to be
awesome.
working to break the duopoly, and we're just going to keep, fighting for basic income. And I'm in college. I actually went back to school to major for nonprofit management. So I'm learning, I'm doing public administration and like social welfare policy and stuff like that. So I'm interested in finishing out the year and graduating and taking all that knowledge and starting something up.
That's fantastic. Well, you mentioned Andrew, and Andrew is speaking at the Mountain View event, the rally in Mountain View on Saturday. So, and that's going to get filmed and all of that kind of stuff. So everybody's going to be able to hear a little bit more of what maybe he'll give a little bit more of a sneak peek also about 2022. Well, awesome. This has been a lovely conversation. I'm really glad. I think this is the first time we just had a chance to chat, and we did it in a very public manner. Thanks for being game and being part of this. Really, really appreciate it.
No, yes, thanks for having me. I just love everything you guys are doing, and I love working with y'all. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and give your kiddo a high five from us. It was great to see her.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.